Okay, can I go? All right, the topic of today's talk is kosher food good for you? At the outset, I think I need to clarify two things. One is that this talk is not aimed at discussing the merits of the kashrut laws as described in the Torah, because the basic principle of our faith is that these are good for us, both physically and spiritually, and we do them because we're told to. There's no question of whether we should or shouldn't be doing them, or observing them. The second thing I need to clarify is I have to disclose a personal interest in the topic. I'm a diabetic, so I am perhaps more acutely aware of what I should or should not eat than perhaps the average person is. This talk is therefore focused on processed foods which are certified kosher. Many of these contain additives or preservatives which are widely held to be unhealthy. Examples of these are hydrogenated vegetable oils, trans fats, and similar additives. Many kosher foods also list sugar or corn syrup as one of their prime ingredients, something which we know to be bad for most people other than in small quantities. These oils and fats in particular have for many years been used by some manufacturers to prolong the shelf life of a wide variety of confectionery and other processed foods. Regrettably, these unhealthy ingredients are sometimes found in kosher products as well, especially if they come from outside the UK, where fortunately we tend to be a little bit more health conscious in this country than some other countries. Our health is something we as Jews are commanded to look after and take seriously, even though as Jews, we often don't agree on what constitutes healthy. I recently read a rather different definition of Jewish keep fit lessons. It said, eat 3 bowls of chicken soup with knedlach, put your hand on your chest and say out loud, feel the burn. It seems to me that there are two questions to be answered. Firstly, does halakha have anything to say on this subject? I.e., food may be technically kosher, but in terms of halachic principles, should we be eating it? Secondly, do the kashrut authorities charged with certifying what we may or may not eat have any obligation to take scientific health findings into account when granting a particular product a hechsher? In other words, does the definition of kosher extend to only those foods which are not bad for you? Or does it extend to any product, or does it only cover, any product which does not contain prohibited ingredients? That's just my home line going. As far as the halakha is concerned, our starting point is Devarim, verses 9 and 15, where it says, only take heed to thyself and guard your soul. The Rambam wrote at length about the care one should take about one eats and how to do so as not to damage one's health. I was, however, particularly interested in the thoughts of Rabbi Zachariah Goldman, who is an authority in America on well-being and the author of a number of books, including one entitled Food, Health, and Judaism. The following is an extract from his book, and I quote, in the words of a prominent Rishon, that's those early medieval commentators, the Ravad, who was the contemporary of the Rambam, said, it is not necessary to say that a man should guard himself from foods that he recognizes damage him. For the man who eats things that damage him and he is able to live without them, rebelliously sins with his body and with his soul. With the loss of his body, this is the pathway of the evil inclination and the advice of fools. And he should turn himself away from the path of life to the path of death. In halakha, continues Rabbi Goldman, there's a term that is employed when a sage does not find it appropriate to forbid something to the public, although he senses that there is a cause for concern. That term is Baal Nefesh HaYamir. In translation, a master of the spirit will be stringent. In more contemporary translation, this term would read, a sensitive and disciplined soul will be mindful. I believe, ends Rabbi Goldman, that for now this is the most fitting halachic response to the dangerous times we live in, end quote. As far as the responsibility of kosher authorities is concerned, judging by the products which contain unhealthy constituents but are nevertheless certified as healthy, I would guess that they consider their function is purely to adjudicate whether the product in question complies with the letter of Jewish law or not, as regards its kosher content. One can sympathize up to a point with the latter point of view, since if any Beis Din had to determine whether the product in question was also healthy for the consumer, it would be assuming a medical or nutritious function, which it would argue is clearly neither its function, nor indeed is it qualified to do so. However, the problem remains, if a product which otherwise contains no non-kosher constituents and is not prepared in a manner which contravenes halakha, yet is known to contain large quantities of substances which are known to be unhealthy, whether these are unhealthy vegetable oils, trans fats, excessive amounts of sugar, etc., should it still be certified as kosher? And if so, should it not, at an absolute minimum, contain a health warning issued by the Beis Din before certifying the product as kosher? The other side of this argument is that one is not forced into buying kosher products that contain unhealthy constituents. But that, frankly, does not address the question of whether such products should, at least at a minimum, perhaps contain a Beis Din health warning, as many manufacturers in the UK and US now have to do by law, or if not by law, they choose to do so with their traffic light warning systems on packaged foods. You will see a green, amber, or red, depending on the amount of sugar, fats, saturated fats, and other salt, other unhealthy constituents in most UK manufactured products. But as far as I know, this system is not in use in countries producing most of the kosher products we use from outside the UK. And in particular, I don't believe it's in use in either Israel or the US. Not every person studies the ingredients and the tiny print of every packaged product that they buy in the way I tend to do. And so this perhaps raises the additional question of the well-known prohibition of not putting a stumbling block before the blind, if the dangers inherent in the product's ingredients are not made clear to the prospective customer. Fortunately, when it comes to the preparation of kosher food, as opposed to simply what raw foods are prohibited by Torah law, our rabbis have almost always found a way to address these problems. We know, for example, about the rules governing what happens if you accidentally drop a small amount of milk into a meat dish, what to do if you accidentally put a milk utensil into a meat pot, etc. Our rabbis have become masters of innovation. So with that in mind, I hope the following story will help our kashrut leadership find a suitable path of staying within the letter of the halakha while ensuring that we are better guided towards healthier eating. It was Pesach, and two Jewish attorneys, Saul and David, solicitors in this country, Saul and David, met at a food court to have lunch. Saul and David proceeded to produce matzah sandwiches from their briefcases and began to eat. One of the waiters in the food court rushed over and told them, "You can't eat your own food in here." Saul and David looked at each other, shrugged their shoulders, and then exchanged their matzah sandwiches. Shabbat.